Hello, I'm Tony Horn. Welcome to my shop. I've been in woodworking for about 30 years, and the project that I've picked out today is a little box called a mystery box. And the reason I call it a mystery box is that it has three components. One, you have your locking device that you have to take out. Then the lid slides off, and you have an inner lid. And the mystery about it is that under the inner lid, this one has an open area. And the second one has an inner lid with a jury divider. And the third one, it has a postage stamp holder where you put your postage stamps in and dispense out the side. And under the inner lid, you have a place for your paper clips, staples, and address stickers. This is the one I call your desktop. The piece of wood that I've chosen is a piece of big leaf maple from the Oregon coast. I picked out a piece that's approximately 3.5 to 4 inches thick. And the box that I'm going to make it approximately 4 inches wide by, let's say, 7 inches long. There's really no dimensions in this box, it's whatever you want. Now that I've marked it, I'm going to block it out, and during the time that I'm blocking it out, whenever I make the cut to separate the piece of wood, it gives me an opportunity to look at all four sides of the wood and make a decision on what part I want to make the top and what part I want to make the bottom. Now that I've blocked it out, I'm going to sand the top and bottom to see which side is the prettiest in order to put on the top. This next cut is going to be the design of the box. And if you'll notice that there's no markings, this is all just right off the top of my head. And if you'll notice, while I'm cutting, if you can pick up the shape of it, it's going to be one of our Northwest states. And by this last cut, you'll be able to tell that in the rough form that this is going to be the state of Oregon. As a personal touch, I always put a penny in the bottom of every piece of work that I create. And what this does is it tells the year that the box is made. Plus, if you use it as a gift, they'll always know what year you gave them the gift. As you notice, I'm using a camper level in order to level up my block of wood so that I can drill my penny hole straight and square. Now that we've drilled the penny hole, let me show you a few things that I do before I get started on cutting the box. First off, I take my pencil and I make a few marks at the bottom and at the top, at the bottom and at the top, all the way around. Put a couple on the long side and then maybe one, on the short side. Okay, now the reason that I put these pencil marks in is that for later on, if the wood that you're working for doesn't have any distinct grain patterns, well then you can use these pencil marks in order to line up your various pieces that you have to glue back together. Okay, another thing I want to mention before I get started is that whenever you make a cut, especially for the lid, make a cut coming in and up, and then when you're going out, make it going down and out. And you'll see that later as we're cutting. And then one more thing before we start having fun is that the pencil that I use is a number 4. What most people don't realize that a number 2 pencil is all right for writing, but whenever you're using it on rough wood, well then it has a tendency to wear down fast. And so I always use a number 4 pencil, which is the same pencil that carpenters, or the same lead that carpenters' pencils are made out of. So go down to your local hardware store or your local office supply store and see if they don't have a number 4 pencil. As you can see, thus far there's been no measurements, and now I'm getting ready to make the top wavy and really there's no measurements. I'm just putting pencil marks on to give me an idea of how I want the top to look. And like I say again, that this box has no measurements whatsoever. We're finally ready to cut the box. Cut the bottom, then the locking device, and then the top. And it's all just a flip-flop motion towards you turn the box from the bottom to the side and back to the bottom and back up to the side, backwards and forth. Up until now, it's all been layout. Now we get to have some fun and start marking and cutting my box. I'm making the bottom 3/16 to 1/4 of an inch, and I usually just freehand it in. You can use a tape and a straight edge. And also remember that whenever you're cutting this box, each piece that you cut, instead of just laying it aside, go ahead and put the box together as you're cutting so that you won't get confused on the step that you're in or what you've done with the parts. And so just take like the bottom and just lay it aside, and the next piece, put it right beside it. Now we're at the second cut, which is the locking device. The first cut, the bottom, we had it on its edge, and now we flipped it over on its back, and we're going to cut the locking device. And if you notice that you really have to go slow at this one in order to keep your blade straight up and down or perpendicular to the saw table. Also, whenever I make this, if you'll notice, I've made it to look like a little guy waving goodbye. And not only is it my locking device, but it has become my logo. At the third cut is the top, and if you'll notice it, I have it laying on its side, and I'm marking the lid approximately 3/8 to a 1/2 inch thick. And I'm putting these two marks here in order to show where I start my invert cuts. Make sure that you get past the locking device and approximately the same distance at the other end for your other locking device. Or if you notice that I went straight down and went down and made a loop, and I'm coming back up and making another loop and headed over to the next locking device. Now I'm going down, I'm making a loop around and coming back up. And you don't necessarily have to follow the lines, but you do have to be careful that whenever you start your cut in with a block of wood, you come up, and when you go out, you make a down cut. Now slide the lid off, and that's the lid. You take it and you set it aside. Okay, the last cut, number 3, I had it up on its edge, and now I have it back on flat on its bottom, and I'm marking out where I'm going to cut the inside of the box out. Again, it's approximately 3/8 to a 1/2 inch thick. Now whenever you start to cut, start at the opposite end from the locking device. And then that way, whenever you glue it back together, it opens up the locking device or the locking hole for whenever you slide the locking device in, it goes in easier. So just continue on through your cut. And then when you come out at the end, be careful that you don't go past this area right here and cut into your outer part of your box. At this point, you need to take and rubber band the box together so that it doesn't break at the locking device portion. And then start building it back together by putting it over on top of the bottom of the box. The fifth cut is the inner lid. This comes out of the portion of the box that we just cut. All right, I lay this out 3/8 to a 1/2 inch again. And whenever I'm cutting it, I just put the lines on there as a guide, but most of it is done free-handed, just following the top part of the box. All right, again, whenever you're cutting, always come in with an upward cut. And go out with a downward cut. The last two cuts are number 6 and 7, and they're cut out of the remainder of the block of wood that we just cut the inner lid out of. And what this cut is that it's the stabs that hold up the inner lid down inside the box. See how I'm placing it down in here? And I'll make cut number 7 and sit it down in there as well, and that's what will hold up the inner lid of the box. And if you'll notice, whenever I'm cutting, I come in with a pretty thick cut. I try to narrow it down and then come out with a thick cut so that it doesn't take up so much room in the box. And now you take and you put the inner lid on it. You just sit it down on the inside like so. Then you take the top and always look how you're doing it and slide it on. Take the locking device, slide it down in the hole, pull the rubber band up, tilt the box up, and you're all finished. Your next step now is your gluing. All right, I just want to show you a few quick things on the gluing. First of all, take your rubber band off and remember these marks that we put on here? And because what will happen is that they will line up with the marks on the bottom of the box. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to separate this just a little bit, put your glue in there, and then put a couple clamps on it. And it's best whenever you're clamping to put as many clamps on as you possibly can. Okay? All right, now clamp it there, and then that glue joint should be, pretty secure right there. Let it sit for however long your gluing company should suggest. Okay, then once you got this part done, all right, going back to those lines again, line up those lines. Okay, all right, first what you want to do is you want to put a dab of glue all the way around it. Okay, and then put it on there and line those lines up. Okay, now where this part, where we went in cutting, there's going to be a loss of 1/8 of an inch there. So let that part of the bottom hang out, because you can sand that off afterwards. Okay, now what you do is that you get it on there and you just put clamps all the way around it. I mean, just put as many clamps as you can get all the way around, because the more clamps you have, the less likelihood that you'll have of having problems later. So put clamps all the way around it. Okay, and then let it dry, and then take your clamps off. All right, then you got the bottom attached. Okay, then you sit in your pieces for your inner lid to sit on. So just put a dab of glue on the floor and on the back, and just sit them in there. Okay, because what happens, see, is that's what holds this inner lid up. Boom, and that's all the gluing there is to it. Now you're ready for sanding and finishing. In closing, I wanted to show you the end product of this mystery box with inner lid. This box here, whenever we designed it, we shaped it like the state of Oregon. All right, we've already went through and you've watched me cut all the pieces. Well, since then, I've glued it back together, I've sanded it, and I finished it. Now, in my finishing, I use a clear finish because it brings out the grains of the wood. Okay, now remember in the beginning, whenever we drilled the penny hole, well, I've inserted a penny by putting in a drop of glue. All right, now what the penny indicates is that the year that the box was made, plus if you use the box as a gift, the people will always know what year you gave them the box. Now before I close this out, I wanted to show you how the finished product is operated. I know that you are going to go through and make one but I just want to show you one last time. You pull the locking device out, you slide the lid off, you take out the inner lid, and underneath you have a place for your jewelry or for your keepsake. And then for closing the box, you just reverse your process. You put your inner lid in, you put your top lid on, and you insert your locking device. And this is a finished product of an inner lid mystery box. I hope that you've enjoyed watching this procedure, and I hope that you will come back with me in the future whenever we make more inner lid mystery boxes. Thank you, and goodbye, you all.